The smell hit me first. Not the antiseptic clean smell of the hospital corridors, not the coffee from the nurse's station, but something else entirely. Burned flesh, charred skin, the acrid, sickly sweet odor of tissue damage that made my stomach turn and my throat constrict. I stood outside Trauma Bay 3, my hand on the door handle, my breath shallow and uneven. Through the small window, I could see the burn team already working, nurses cutting away clothing, doctors assessing damage, the controlled chaos of emergency medicine in motion. Dr. Patel appeared beside me, her face grim, her eyes conveying the severity before she even spoke. "Reyes," she said, her voice low and urgent. "Industrial accident. 32-year-old male, flash burn from an electrical arc at the metal fabrication plant downtown. Second and third degree burns covering approximately 40% of his body, concentrated on his chest, arms, neck, and face." My mouth went dry. 40%. Face involvement. This was bad. "He's stable for now," she continued, "but he's going to need extensive treatment. Fluid resuscitation, wound management, probably multiple surgeries, and he's asking for a mirror." "A mirror?" I repeated, my voice barely audible. She nodded, her expression somber. "He wants to see his face. We've been stalling, but he's insistent. I need you to go in there, assess him, start the workup, and..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Prepare him for what comes next." I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The man lay on the gurney, his body a canvas of red and black and white, the colors of severe burns. Blisters had already formed across his chest, some intact, some ruptured and weeping. His arms were wrapped in temporary dressings, white gauze already staining through with fluid. But it was his face that made me freeze. The left side was relatively spared, skin pink and inflamed but intact. But the right side looked like melted wax. The skin was charred in places, bright red and blistered in others, swollen beyond recognition. His right eye was swollen shut, the tissue around it puffy and damaged. His ear on that side was partially burned away, and he was conscious, alert. His one good eye tracked the movement in the room, landing on me as I approached. "Doctor," he said, his voice raspy from smoke inhalation, strained from pain. I need to see my face." I moved closer, pulling up a stool beside the gurney. "I'm Dr. Reyes," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the hammer of my heart. "Let's talk about your injuries first, and then..." "No," he interrupted, his good eye finding mine with desperate intensity. "Please, I need to know. My daughter, she's 5 years old. I'm supposed to pick her up from kindergarten today." His voice broke. "Will she be afraid of me?" The words hit me like a physical blow. I froze, my prepared medical speech dying in my throat, because I didn't know how to answer that question. I didn't know how to tell him that yes, his face would frighten a child, that his daughter might not recognize him, that the man he was this morning was not the man staring back from the mirror. But what I learned over the next 3 months, through surgeries and setbacks, through pain and perseverance, through a father's love and a daughter's courage, would teach me more about healing than any textbook ever could. This is the story of Marcus Webb, and this is the story of how a little girl taught me what it really means to see someone. My name is Dr. Noah Reyes. I'm 27 years old, 5 months into my residency at Hospital St. Halstead, and I'm still learning that medicine is less about knowing everything and more about being present for the moments that matter. It was a Thursday in late April. Spring had finally arrived after a brutal winter, and the city was alive with color. Trees blooming pink and white, flowers pushing through soil in planters along the streets, the sky that brilliant blue that made you want to skip work and spend the day outside. The morning had been quiet, almost peaceful, which should have been my first warning. In the ER, peace never lasted. I'd arrived at 6:30 that morning, earlier than my shift required, but I'd learned that the early hours were valuable. Time to review charts, to prepare for rounds, to drink coffee in relative silence before the day exploded into controlled chaos. The residence lounge was empty except for Dr. Sarah Kim, a third-year resident who'd taken me under her wing during my first weeks. "Morning, Noah," she said, not looking up from the chart she was reviewing. "Ready for another day in paradise?" "Is anyone ever ready?" I replied, pouring coffee into a chipped mug that had seen better days. She laughed. "Fair point. Trauma rotation treating you okay?" "It's intense," I admitted, "but I'm learning a lot. That's what trauma does. Throws you in the deep end and forces you to swim." She closed her chart and looked at me. "Just remember, Noah, in trauma, you're going to see things that shake you, things that make you question everything. That's normal. What matters is how you show up for the patient anyway. I nodded, not knowing how prophetic those words would be. Dr. Anjali Patel found me around 8 o'clock. She was the attending physician overseeing my trauma rotation, a woman in her late 40s who'd seen everything the ER could throw at her and remained unshakable. She had this way of moving through chaos with complete calm, like the eye of a hurricane. "Reyes," she said, appearing in the doorway of the supply room where I was restocking my pockets with alcohol wipes and gauze. "We've got incoming. EMS just called. Industrial accident at Morrison Metal Fabrication. One patient, male, 30s, electrical burn injury. ETA, 5 minutes." My stomach tightened. Burn injuries were among the most challenging traumas to manage. The damage was often more extensive than it initially appeared. Complications were numerous, and the pain was unimaginable. "What do we know?" I asked, following her down the corridor toward the trauma bays. "Not much yet. Flash burn from an electrical arc while he was welding. Lost consciousness briefly, now awake and alert. Witnesses report visible burns to upper body and face." She pushed through the double doors into the trauma bay. "We're mobilizing the burn team, but I want you on point for the initial assessment. This is your case, Reyes. I'll be right there, but you lead." Pride and terror mixed in equal measure. Understood. The trauma bay hummed with activity as nurses prepared. IV poles were positioned, bags of lactated ringers hung and ready for fluid resuscitation, sterile supplies laid out in careful order. The burn cart was wheeled in, containing specialized dressings and medications. Everyone moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role. I put on a gown, gloves, mask. My hands were steady, but my heart raced. The ambulance arrived with sirens wailing, the sound cutting through the morning. Paramedics rushed through the doors, pushing a gurney, and that's when the smell hit me. That terrible, unmistakable smell of burned human tissue. 32-year-old male Marcus Webb, the lead paramedic called out as they wheeled him in. Flash burn from electrical arc, approximately 40% body surface area, concentrated upper body and face. 2 large-bore IVs established, 1 liter of ringers on board, vitals stable but tachycardic. Heart rate 120, BP 140/90, respiratory rate 22, oxygen saturation 96% on room air. They transferred him to our gurney, and I got my first clear look. Marcus Webb had been, a handsome man. Even through the trauma, I could see that. He was broad-shouldered, muscular from years of physical labor, with dark hair and what would have been strong, symmetrical features. But the right side of his face was devastated. The skin was charred black in some areas, bright red and blistered in others, swollen and weeping. His right eye was swollen completely shut, the eyelid damaged and puffy. His ear on that side was partially burned away, the cartilage exposed. His chest, visible where the paramedics had cut away his shirt, showed the same pattern. The right side severely burned, blisters forming and rupturing, skin peeling away to reveal raw, damaged tissue beneath. His right arm was the worst, charred almost black from hand to shoulder, the smell of burned flesh overwhelming despite the ventilation system running full blast. But his left side was relatively spared. His left eye was open, clear, tracking everything in the room with terrified awareness. And that made it worse somehow. That he was fully conscious, fully aware of what had happened to him. "Marcus," I said, leaning into his line of sight, making sure he could see me. "I'm Dr. Reyes. You're at Hospital St. Halstead. You've been burned, but you're safe now. We're going to take care of you. Can you tell me what happened?" His voice when he spoke was raspy, damaged from inhaling hot air and smoke. "I was welding, electrical arc, so fast, I didn't even see it coming. Are you having any trouble breathing?" I asked, already examining his airway, looking for signs of inhalation injury. Singed nose hairs, soot in his mouth, swelling that could compromise his airway. "A little," he admitted. "Throat hurts." "Okay, we're going to get you on oxygen and monitor that closely." I turned to the respiratory therapist. "Let's get him on high-flow oxygen and prepare for possible intubation if airway swelling progresses." I moved through the assessment systematically, checking circulation in his burned arm. The pulses were weak but present, a good sign. I documented the extent of the burns, using the rule of 9s to calculate body surface area. Right arm, 9%. Chest and abdomen, 18%. Face and neck, 9%. Approximately 40% total, just as the paramedics had estimated. "Marcus," I said, continuing to work, "we need to start aggressive fluid resuscitation, Burns this extensive cause significant fluid loss. We're going to be giving you a lot of IV fluids over the next 24 hours. My daughter, he said suddenly, his one good eye finding mine with desperate intensity. Emma, she's 5. Someone needs to pick her up from kindergarten. My wife, he stopped, confusion crossing his features. My wife, we're divorced. She's at work. Emma's at school. Someone needs to... We'll make sure someone contacts your family, Dr. Patel interjected smoothly. Don't worry about that right now. Focus on staying calm and letting us help you. But Marcus wasn't listening. His good hand, his left hand, relatively unburned except for some blistering on the fingers, reached up toward his face, trying to touch the damage. I caught his hand gently. Marcus, try not to touch. Your skin is very damaged right now. How bad? He asked, his voice breaking. How bad is it? This was the moment I'd been dreading, the moment where I had to be honest without destroying hope. It's significant, I said carefully. You have 2nd and 3rd degree burns covering about 40% of your body. The most severe damage is to your right arm, chest, and face. You're going to need extensive treatment, wound care, probably skin grafts, physical therapy. It's going to be a long recovery. My face, he said, and I heard the terror in his voice. My face. I need to see it. Marcus, please, he begged, his voice cracking with desperation and pain. I need to know. My daughter, Emma. I'm supposed to see her this weekend. Will she... He couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't voice the fear that was consuming him. I looked at Dr. Patel. She gave a slight shake of her head. Not yet. Not before we stabilize him, not before we prepare him. But Marcus saw the exchange. Please, he said again. And this time his voice broke completely. Tears leaked from his left eye, tracking down the intact side of his face. Will my daughter be afraid of me? I froze, because I didn't have an answer. I didn't have words of comfort that wouldn't be lies. A 5-year-old child confronted with her father's face transformed by fire. Yes, she would be afraid. She might not recognize him. She might cry or hide or run away, and none of that would be her fault or his, but it would happen anyway. Marcus, I said finally, choosing my words with extreme care, your face has been injured. It's going to look different while it heals. Children can be scared by things they don't understand, but what matters is what's inside, what hasn't changed. You're still her father. That doesn't change. It wasn't enough. I could see it in his eye. The desperation, the grief, the fear of losing his daughter's love because of something completely beyond his control. I need to see, he whispered. Please, I need to know what she'll see. Dr. Patel stepped forward. Marcus, right now we need to focus on stabilizing you and starting treatment. Once we have you settled, once we've managed your pain and started proper wound care, we'll talk about everything else. Okay? He nodded, but I could see he wasn't satisfied. The question would haunt him until he had an answer. We worked for the next 2 hours, stabilizing Marcus and beginning the complex process of burn management. The burn team arrived. Dr. Michelle Torres, the hospital's leading burn specialist, along with 2 burn nurses who'd seen it all. They moved with practiced efficiency, their faces showing sympathy but not shock. They'd seen worse. Let's get him on the Parkland formula, Dr. Torres said, calculating the fluid requirements. 4 milliliters per kilogram per percent body surface area burned. He's what, about 80 kilograms? 40% BSA? That's 12,800 milliliters in the first 24 hours, half in the first 8 hours. The numbers were staggering. Over 12 liters of fluid, but burns caused massive fluid shifts, plasma leaking from damaged capillaries into tissue, leading to shock and organ failure if not aggressively replaced. We started morphine for pain, titrating carefully to keep him comfortable but not over-sedated. His screams during the initial wound cleaning would haunt me for weeks. Despite the medication, despite our best efforts, the pain of burn injuries was unlike anything else. Every nerve ending was firing, sending distress signals to a brain that couldn't comprehend the extent of the damage. Dr. Torres examined his face carefully, documenting every detail. Partial thickness burns to the right cheek, forehead, and periorbital area, full thickness to the right ear and neck. The eye itself appears intact, but the eyelid has significant damage. He's going to need multiple debridement sessions and likely grafting to the face. Prognosis? Dr. Patel asked. Dr. Torres was quiet for a moment. He'll survive. The burns are extensive, but not immediately life-threatening if we manage them properly. But the cosmetic outcome? She trailed off. The face is difficult. We can do grafts, reconstruction, scar revision, but it'll never look like it did before. He needs to understand that. We transferred Marcus to the burn ICU, a specialized unit designed for the intensive care burn patients required. The rooms were kept warm. Burn patients couldn't regulate their body temperature properly, and meticulously cleaned to prevent infection, the leading cause of death in burn injuries. I stayed with him during the transfer, walking beside the gurney, watching the monitors, watching him. He was quiet now, the morphine finally providing some relief, but his one good eye remained open, staring at the ceiling, processing what had happened to him in the span of seconds. In the burn ICU, we got him settled. Fresh dressings covered his wounds, silver-impregnated bandages that would help prevent infection. IV pumps hummed, delivering the constant stream of fluids his body desperately needed. Monitors beeped in steady rhythm, tracking every vital sign. "Marcus," I said softly, checking his IV lines, "we're going to keep you here where we can monitor you closely. The next 24 to 48 hours are critical. We need to watch for signs of infection, make sure your kidneys are handling the fluid load, protect your airway in case of swelling." "My daughter," he said again, his voice weak but insistent. "Did someone call?" "We're working on it," I assured him. "Do you have a number for your ex-wife?" He recited it from memory, and I wrote it down, promising to make sure someone reached her. "And Marcus," I said, hesitating, "about seeing your face. If you really want to, we can arrange it. But I want you to be prepared. It's going to look worse than it feels right now because the swelling is just starting. It's going to be shocking. I need to know," he said simply. "I need to know what Emma will see when she looks at me." I nodded slowly. "Okay, let me talk to Dr. Torres. But Marcus, one thing you need to understand. What Emma sees isn't just your face. She'll see how you handle this, how you talk to her, how you show her you're still her dad. Kids are resilient. They can handle a lot if they feel safe. But will she be afraid?" he pressed. That one good eye locked on mine, demanding honesty. I took a breath. Initially, she might be startled. Things that look different can surprise kids. But fear isn't permanent. With time, with patience, with reassurance, she'll adjust. What matters is that you're there, that you're present, that you show her you're still you. It was the truth, but I could see it didn't bring him comfort. 3 hours later, after consulting with Dr. Torres and the psychiatric team, we decided to let Marcus see his face. It was his right, ultimately, and delaying would only increase his anxiety. Dr. Torres and I entered his room together. A burn nurse, Patricia, came with us. She'd been doing this for 20 years and had a way of providing comfort in the hardest moments. "Marcus," Dr. Torres said, pulling up a chair beside his bed, "Dr. Reyes tells me you want to see your injuries. I want you to know that what you're going to see right now is not what you'll look like long term. Your face is swollen from the trauma and the fluids we're giving you. The burns will change appearance as they heal. We have many options for reconstruction and scar management. What you see today is not the final result." He nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I understand, but I still need to see." Patricia brought over a small handheld mirror, the kind we used for patient care. She positioned herself on his left side, the uninjured side, and angled the mirror carefully. "I'm going to show you slowly," she said, her voice kind but professional. "We'll start with the left side, then move to show you the right. Okay?" "Okay," he whispered. She tilted the mirror, showing him his left profile first. His intact eye, his cheek, his ear. Swollen, yes, and red from the heat and trauma, but recognizable. Human. Him. Then she slowly turned the mirror. I watched his face as he saw the damage for the first time. Watched his eye widen. Watched his breath catch. Watched the realization hit him like a second wave of fire. The right side of his face in the mirror looked alien. The skin was mottled red and black, blistered and weeping. His right eye was swollen completely shut, the eyelid so puffy it looked like a grotesque balloon. His ear was partially gone, the remaining tissue charred and twisted. His cheek was covered in blisters, some intact and filled with clear fluid, others ruptured and showing raw dermis beneath. It didn't look human. It looked like something from a horror movie, something that would frighten children and make adults turn away in discomfort. And Marcus knew it. A sound came from him, not quite a cry, not quite a scream, but something in between. A sound of grief so profound it made my chest ache. The mirror slipped from Patricia's hands as Marcus raised his left hand to his face, touching the damaged skin, feeling the texture, the heat, the wrongness of it. "Oh God," he whispered. "Oh God, no. Emma. She'll..." He couldn't finish. He dissolved into sobs, his body shaking, which made the pain worse, which made him cry harder. Patricia quickly administered additional pain medication, while Dr. Torres spoke to him in low, soothing tones. But I just stood there, frozen, watching a man's heart break, because he wasn't crying about the pain. He wasn't crying about his face or his body or his future. He was crying because he believed he'd lost his daughter's love, that a 5-year-old girl would look at her father and see a monster. "Marcus," Dr. Torres said firmly, taking his hand, "listen to me. This is acute trauma. This is not what you'll look like after treatment. We can do skin grafts, we can do reconstruction, we can do laser therapy for scars. You have options. How long?" He gasped between sobs. "How long until I look normal again?" The silence that followed was damning. "There's no simple timeline," Dr. Torres said carefully. "Initial grafting might happen in a week or two, once the wounds stabilize. But full reconstruction, multiple surgeries, scar revision, physical therapy, we're looking at months, possibly years. Years," he repeated, the word hollow. "Emma's 5 years old. By the time I look human again, she'll be 7, 8. She'll have spent years being afraid of me." "She doesn't have to be afraid," I said, finding my voice. "Marcus, kids don't care about appearance the way adults do. They care about safety, about love, about consistency. If you show up for her, if you're still her dad in all the ways that matter, she'll adjust. You don't know that," he said, his voice bitter. "You don't have kids. You don't know what it's like to think about your child being scared of you." He was right. I didn't know. I'd never been a father. I'd never loved someone enough that their fear of me would be worse than any physical pain. But I'd seen other families navigate trauma. I'd seen children surprise everyone with their capacity for adaptation and love. "You're right," I admitted. "I don't know from personal experience, but I've seen it. I've seen kids rally around parents going through cancer treatment, losing their hair, losing weight, looking nothing like they used to. The kids don't care. They just want their parent." Marcus closed his eye, tears still streaming down the left side of his face, soaking into the pillow. "I hope you're right," he whispered, "because I can't lose her. She's all I have." Later that afternoon, I volunteered to call Marcus's ex-wife, Jennifer Webb. I wasn't required to. Social workers usually handled family notifications, but something about Marcus's desperation made me want to be involved, to make sure his daughter was protected, prepared, cared for. I found a quiet office, sat down with Marcus's chart open in front of me, and dialed the number he'd given me. She answered on the third ring. "Hello?" Her voice was harried, stressed, the sound of someone trying to juggle too much. "Ms. Webb? Jennifer Webb?" "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Dr. Noah Reyes. I'm calling from Hospital St. Halstead about Marcus Webb." The silence was immediate and heavy. Then, "What happened? Is he okay?" "He was in an industrial accident this morning. He's been burned. He's stable and receiving treatment, but it's serious." I heard her breath catch, heard something clatter in the background like she'd dropped something. "How serious?" "He has burns covering approximately 40% of his body, including his face. He's in our burn intensive care unit. He's going to need extensive treatment and recovery time." Another silence. Then quietly, "His face? Yes? How bad?" I chose my words carefully. "Significant damage. He's going to need reconstructive surgery and skin grafts." "Oh God." Her voice was shaky now. Does he know? Have you told him?" "He asked to see. We showed him." "How did he?" She trailed off, then asked a different question. "Has he asked about Emma?" "Yes, multiple times. He's very worried about her reaction, about frightening her." Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. I could hear her breathing, could almost feel her processing, calculating, trying to figure out how to protect her daughter from something terrible. "Dr. Reyes," she said finally, "I need to be honest with you. Marcus and I divorced 2 years ago. It wasn't easy, but we've worked hard to co-parent effectively. Emma sees him every other weekend and one evening a week. She adores him. He's a good father." "I can tell," I said. "But she's 5 years old. She has nightmares about monsters under her bed. She's afraid of Halloween masks. If she sees him like this," Jennifer's voice cracked, "I don't know how to prepare her. I don't know how to explain this without terrifying her." "Ms. Webb," I said gently, "I know this is frightening, but kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. What Emma needs is honesty appropriate to her age level, reassurance that her dad is still her dad and time to adjust. But how do I explain that Daddy looks like..." She couldn't finish. "You tell her Daddy was hurt at work. that he has injuries that look scary, but he's getting better. You prepare her before she sees him. You let her know it's okay if she feels scared or confused, but that Daddy loves her and nothing about that has changed. Jennifer was crying now, soft sobs carrying through the phone. This is going to traumatize her. It might be hard, I acknowledged, but trauma comes from feeling unsafe, from having no control, from experiencing things without support or explanation. If you're there, if Marcus is patient, if you both show her she's safe, she'll be okay. She might struggle initially, but she'll adjust. When can I see him? Jennifer asked. Visiting hours in the burn ICU are restricted, but we can make an exception for family. Come by this evening if you can. Talk to him. Make a plan together for how to handle Emma's first visit. Should I bring her today? No, I said firmly. Not yet. Marcus needs a few days to stabilize, and Emma needs preparation. Give it a few days. Let Marcus heal a bit. Let the initial swelling go down. Use that time to prepare her carefully. Okay, Jennifer said, her voice thick with emotion. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Reyes. Thank you for calling. Thank you for taking care of him. Of course, I said. After I hung up, I sat in that quiet office for a long time, staring at the wall, thinking about families and trauma and the things we do for love. The next 7 days were brutal. Marcus underwent his first debridement surgery, a procedure where surgeons removed dead and damaged tissue to promote healing and prevent infection. It was necessary, but agonizing. Even with anesthesia, even with the best pain management, the aftermath was excruciating. I checked on him multiple times each day, monitoring his fluid balance, watching for signs of infection, adjusting medications. The amount of morphine he required was staggering, and even then, he was never truly comfortable. Burn pain is different from other pain. It's constant, unrelenting, made worse by every movement, every breath, every moment of consciousness. The damaged nerve endings fire continuously, sending distress signals that the brain can't shut off. Sleep became Marcus's only escape, and we kept him sedated as much as possible during those first days. But during his lucid moments, he asked about Emma. Every time. Has Jennifer called? When can I see Emma? Is she okay? Does she know what happened? On the third day, Jennifer visited. I happened to be in Marcus's room, checking his labs on the computer when she arrived. She was younger than I expected, probably early 30s, with long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and tired eyes that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. She wore scrubs. She was a dental hygienist, Marcus had mentioned, and carried a small bag. When she saw Marcus, she froze, just for a moment. But I saw it, the shock, the involuntary recoil, the instant when her brain struggled to reconcile the man in the bed with the man she'd once loved. Then she recovered, moved forward, took his left hand carefully. Hey, she said softly. How are you doing? Jen. Marcus's voice was rough, strained. Thanks for coming. Of course. She pulled up a chair, sitting close but careful not to bump any of the IVs or monitors. I've been calling for updates every day. Emma? He asked immediately. Jennifer glanced at me, then back at Marcus. She's okay. She knows you were hurt at work. I told her you're in the hospital getting better. Does she know about... He gestured vaguely at his face. I told her you have injuries that might look different, that might seem scary, but that you're still her daddy. I showed her pictures of people with bandages, talked about how doctors help people heal. When can I see her? The desperation in his voice was palpable. Jennifer hesitated. Dr. Torres said maybe next week, once some of the swelling goes down, once you're a bit more stable. Next week? Marcus's eye closed. That feels like forever. I know, Jennifer said, and I could hear the empathy in her voice, the remnant of whatever love they'd once shared. But we need to do this right, Marcus. For Emma's sake, we need to prepare her properly. What if she's scared of me? He whispered. Then we'll work through it, Jennifer said firmly. She's your daughter. She loves you. That doesn't just disappear. I quietly excused myself, giving them privacy. But as I left, I heard Marcus say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I'm sorry Emma has to see me like this. And I heard Jennifer respond, don't apologize for being hurt. Just focus on getting better. Over the next week, I worked closely with the psychiatric team and child life specialists to develop a plan for Emma's first visit. Dr. Rachel Freeman, our pediatric psychologist, took the lead. Children Emma's age are concrete thinkers, Dr. Freeman explained to Jennifer, Marcus, and me during a meeting in the family conference room. They don't understand abstract concepts well, but they respond to clear, honest information presented at their level. She had brought books, Children's books about parents with injuries, about hospitals, about things that look scary but aren't dangerous. She had dolls with removable bandages. She had pictures showing the progression of healing. "We'll prepare Emma in stages," Dr. Freeman said. "First, Jennifer will read these books with her at home, normalizing the idea that people can look different when they're hurt. Then, we'll have her visit the hospital but not Marcus's room, just to see the environment, meet some friendly nurses, understand this is a place where people get better." "And then?" Jennifer asked, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Then we'll have a pre-visit where we show her pictures of her dad, explain what bandages are for, let her practice with the dolls. We'll give her language to express if she feels scared or confused. We'll make sure she knows it's okay to have feelings." "And if she's still too frightened?" Marcus asked from his wheelchair. He'd been moved out of the ICU 3 days ago, a good sign, but he still required intensive wound care and pain management. Dr. Freeman looked at him with compassion. "Then we go slowly. We let her set the pace. Maybe she just waves from the doorway the first time. Maybe she only stays for 5 minutes. We don't force it. Children need to feel in control of situations that feel scary." Marcus nodded, but I could see the fear in his eye. The fear that his daughter would never be able to look at him the same way. Jennifer reached over and squeezed his hand. "We'll get through this," she said. "All of us." Jennifer kept me updated on Emma's preparation via text messages and brief phone calls. She was meticulous, following Dr. Freeman's plan exactly, adding her own maternal intuition and knowledge of her daughter. She read the books every night. Emma asked questions. "Why does the daddy have bandages? Does it hurt? Will my daddy have bandages?" Jennifer answered honestly but age-appropriately. "Yes, daddy has bandages. Yes, it hurt when he got hurt, but the doctors are giving him medicine to help with the pain. The bandages help him heal." Emma practiced with the dolls, putting bandages on them, pretending to be a doctor. Jennifer sent me a photo, a stuffed bear wrapped in white gauze, Emma's careful 5-year-old handwriting on a get-well card propped beside it. "She's processing," Jennifer texted, asking lots of questions, sometimes worried, sometimes curious. Normal. They visited the hospital on a Saturday morning, 10 days after Marcus's accident. They didn't see Marcus, just toured the facility. Emma wore a pink dress and carried a stuffed rabbit. She was small for 5, with dark curls like her mother and her father's brown eyes. I happened to be on the floor and saw them. Patricia, the burn nurse, gave Emma a tour, showing her the nurse's station, letting her press the buttons on a blood pressure cuff, giving her a sticker. "Is this where my daddy is?" Emma asked, her voice small but clear. "He's in a room just like these," Patricia said kindly, "where nurses take care of him and help him feel better." "When can I see him?" "Soon, sweetie. Very soon." Emma seemed satisfied with that, clutching her rabbit, taking in everything with wide, observant eyes. 2 weeks after the accident, Emma was ready for her first visit, or as ready as a 5-year-old could be. The plan was carefully orchestrated. Marcus would be in his wheelchair, positioned by the window where natural light would illuminate him. His bandages would be fresh and clean. We'd time it for mid-morning after his pain medication, but before he got too tired. Jennifer would bring Emma to the doorway first, let her see her father from a distance. They'd prepared Emma with photos, but photos couldn't capture the full reality. The goal was to let Emma control the pace. If she wanted to stay in the doorway, fine. If she wanted to approach, fine. If she needed to leave, that was fine too. I stationed myself in a nearby alcove, out of sight, but available if needed. Dr. Freeman was there, and Patricia, both ready to support however necessary. I heard them coming before I saw them. Emma's voice, chattering about something, Jennifer's softer responses. Then they appeared at the end of the hallway. Emma wore purple today, purple leggings and a purple shirt with a sparkly butterfly. Her dark curls were in pigtails. She held her mother's hand tightly, her rabbit tucked under her other arm. They reached Marcus's room. The door was open. Jennifer crouched down to Emma's level. "Remember what we talked about," Jennifer said softly. "Daddy has bandages because he was hurt. He might look different, but he's still Daddy. Still the same person who loves you and plays with you and reads you stories." Emma nodded seriously. "If you feel scared or confused, that's okay. You can tell me. We can leave anytime you want. Okay?" Another nod. "Do you want to see him?" Emma hesitated, then nodded again. Jennifer stood and they walked to the doorway together. Marcus was positioned exactly as planned, by the window, the morning light soft on his bandaged face. Most of his head was wrapped in white gauze, only his left eye and mouth visible. His right arm was bandaged from fingertips to shoulder. His chest was covered by a hospital gown, but you could see the edge of bandages at his collar. He looked like a mummy, like something from a movie, not like Daddy. Emma froze. Her grip on Jennifer's hand tightened. Her eyes went wide. Marcus's visible eye found his daughter. "Hi, Emma Bean," he said, using his nickname for her, his voice soft and gentle despite the pain I knew he was in. Emma didn't respond. She just stared, her little body tense, processing what she was seeing. "It's okay," Jennifer murmured. "Take your time." "I know I look pretty silly with all these bandages," Marcus said, keeping his voice light. "I look like a Halloween mummy, don't I?" Emma's expression didn't change. The fear was evident. The confusion. This looked like her father's body, sounded vaguely like her father's voice, but it didn't look like Daddy. "Do you want to come in?" Marcus asked. "You don't have to. You can stay right there. But I've missed you so much, Emma Bean." Emma looked up at her mother, uncertainty written across her small face. "It's okay," Jennifer said again. "Whatever you feel is okay." We all held our breath, watching, waiting. And then Emma did something no one expected. She took one small step forward, just one, still holding her mother's hand, still clutching her rabbit, but one step closer. "That's my girl," Marcus said, and I could hear the emotion in his voice, the hope, the desperate love. "You're so brave." Another step, then another. Slow, cautious, like approaching a strange dog that might bite, but moving forward. She stopped about 5 feet away, close enough to see him clearly, far enough to maintain safe distance. "Hi, Daddy," she said finally, her voice very small. "Hi, baby," Marcus said, and tears were streaming down the visible part of his face. "I'm so happy to see you." "Does it hurt?" Emma asked. "A little," Marcus admitted, "but the doctors are helping me feel better, and seeing you makes me feel better too." Emma studied him carefully, her 5-year-old mind working through what she was seeing, trying to reconcile it with what she knew. "Why are you all wrapped up? Remember how Mommy told you I got hurt at work? The bandages protect my skin while it heals, like when you get a boo-boo and we put a Band-Aid on it. These are just really big Band-Aids." Emma processed this. Then, "Can I see your face?" Jennifer tensed. Marcus glanced at me. I'd moved slightly into view, and I gave a small nod. "We'd discussed this possibility. Part of my face is under the bandages right now," Marcus said carefully. "It needs to stay covered so it can heal, but you can see part of it. See?" He tilted his head slightly, showing the unbandaged left side of his face, still swollen, still reddened, but recognizably human, recognizably Daddy. Emma studied it. Then, unexpectedly, she took another step forward, and another, until she was standing right beside his wheelchair, looking up at him. "You look different," she said, with the brutal honesty of children. "I know," Marcus said. "I'm going to look different for a while, but I'm still me, still your daddy, still the person who loves you more than anything in the whole world." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she held up her rabbit. "Mr. Hoppy wanted to visit you. He was worried." Marcus's face crumpled with emotion. "Hi, Mr. Hoppy," he said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for worrying about me." Emma moved the rabbit's paw in a little wave. Then she said, "Can you read me a story?" The request was so normal, so beautifully, heartbreakingly normal, that several people in the vicinity had to turn away, overcome with emotion. "I would love to read you a story," Marcus said. "Do we have a book?" Jennifer pulled a book from her bag. "Goodnight Moon," Emma's current favorite. She handed it to Marcus, who held it carefully in his less damaged left hand. Emma climbed, carefully, guided by her mother, onto Marcus's lap, avoiding his injuries, settling against his left side where the damage was minimal. And Marcus began to read. His voice was rough, strained from the smoke damage and the trauma, but he read every word, every page. His daughter nestled against him, her fear melting into the familiar comfort of story time with Daddy. When he finished, Emma looked up at him. "Will you get better?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said firmly. "It's going to take time, but I'm going to get better. And the whole time, I'm still going to be your daddy, okay?" "Okay," Emma said. Then, after a pause, "I love you, Daddy." Marcus couldn't speak. He just held his daughter closer as his injuries allowed, and cried. I had to leave. I walked quickly down the hallway, found an empty supply closet, and leaned against the wall, my own vision blurred. Because I'd just witnessed something I'd never seen before. Perfect, unconditional love overcoming fear. The weeks that followed established a rhythm. Emma visited twice a week, usually for an hour. The first few visits, she was cautious, observant, processing. But gradually, she relaxed. She brought drawings, showed him worksheets from school, Told him about her friends and her teacher, and the caterpillar they were raising in class. Marcus underwent multiple surgeries, skin grafts harvested from his thighs and applied to his face and arm, debridements to remove scar tissue, physical therapy to maintain function in his damaged arm. The pain was constant, the progress slow, the setbacks frequent. But Emma's visits kept him going. On days when the pain was unbearable, when infection threatened, when he wanted to give up, he'd look at the drawings taped to his wall, crude 5-year-old artwork of flowers and houses and stick figures labeled Daddy, and he'd find the strength to continue. I rotated off the burn unit after 6 weeks, moving to my next assignment, but I kept checking in on Marcus, partly because I'd grown attached to his case, and partly because I needed to see how the story ended. 3 months after the accident, Marcus was discharged to outpatient care. His face was still heavily scarred, raised pink tissue where the grafts had taken, areas of hyperpigmentation, the right side of his face asymmetrical from tissue loss. His ear had been partially reconstructed but would never look normal. His eye was intact, but the eyelid drooped from nerve damage. He looked different. He would always look different, but he looked human. And more importantly, when Emma looked at him, she saw Daddy. I visited him at his first outpatient appointment in the reconstructive surgery clinic. He was there with Jennifer and Emma, consulting with Dr. Torres about the next phase of reconstruction. "Dr. Reyes," Emma said when she saw me running over, "I remember you. You're the doctor who takes care of Daddy." "Hi, Emma," I said, crouching down. "How are you?" "Good. Daddy's coming home soon." "I heard. That's wonderful." Marcus approached, walking steadily now, his damaged arm held carefully but functionally. "Dr. Reyes," he said, extending his left hand. "Good to see you." We shook hands and I studied his face. The scars were prominent, undeniable, but his expression was hopeful, lighter than I'd seen in months. "How are you managing?" I asked. "Day by day," he said honestly. "Pain's better. Function is improving. Still looking at several more surgeries over the next year or two. But I'm alive. I'm here. I get to see my daughter." Emma was tugging on his hand. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after?" "We'll see," Marcus said, the universal parent response, and we all smiled. Jennifer joined us, Emma now attached to her leg. "Dr. Reyes, we can't thank you enough for everything you did, for how you helped us navigate this. You did the hard part," I said. "Both of you. Preparing Emma, supporting each other, staying strong." "Emma did the hardest part," Marcus said, looking down at his daughter with unmistakable love. "She had to be brave enough to see past what was scary." "It's not scary anymore," Emma said matter-of-factly. "It's just Daddy." And there it was. The truth that had taken 3 months to learn, but would last a lifetime. It's just Daddy. 6 months after the accident, I ran into Marcus and Emma at the hospital cafeteria. I was grabbing lunch between patients when I heard a familiar voice. "Dr. Reyes!" I turned to see Emma waving enthusiastically from a table by the window. She'd grown, looked more like 6 than 5 now, her hair longer, her face more mature. Marcus sat across from her, his face showing significant improvement from the last time I'd seen him. The scars were still there, still prominent, but flatter now, faded from angry pink to pale white in places. His eyelid had been surgically corrected and opened fully. His ear had been further reconstructed. He would never look like he had before the accident, but he looked more like himself, more at peace. "Mind if I join you?" I asked. "Please," Marcus said, gesturing to an empty chair. Emma immediately launched into a detailed explanation of why they were there. Daddy had a checkup and then they were going to see a movie, and she'd gotten to miss school, which was exciting even though she liked school most of the time. I listened, smiling, watching the easy interaction between father and daughter. Emma reached over at one point to steal a French fry from Marcus's plate, and he pretended to be outraged, which made her giggle. Normal. They looked normal. Like any father and daughter having lunch together. "She's doing great," I observed. "She is," Marcus agreed, his voice full of pride. "Straight A's in kindergarten, has a million friends, plays soccer now. She's fearless. Just like her dad," I said. Marcus shook his head. "I wasn't fearless. I was terrified. Still am sometimes, honestly. But she taught me something important." "What's that?" "That love is braver than fear. That kids don't see the way adults see. They see what matters." He watched Emma, who was now drawing on a napkin with a crayon she'd pulled from her pocket. "She sees me. Not my scars, not my injuries. Me." "That's beautiful," I said. "You were right, you know," Marcus continued. "That first day, when you said she'd see how I handled it, how I showed up for her. You were right. The face didn't matter as much as being present, being honest, being consistent. Emma looked up from her drawing. "Daddy, look! I drew you!" She held up the napkin. On it was a stick figure with a big smile, standing next to a smaller stick figure, holding hands. The larger figure had lines on one side of the face, scars, I realized. But the smile was huge, taking up most of the circular head. "That's perfect," Marcus said, his voice thick. "Can I keep it?" "Yes, it's for you," Emma said, pushing it across the table. Marcus carefully folded the napkin and put it in his pocket, right over his heart. Then he looked at me. "Thank you," he said simply. "For everything. You did all the work," I said. "Maybe, but you gave me hope when I had none. You told me it was possible. That mattered more than you know." We talked for a few more minutes, then I had to get back to work. As I was leaving, Emma called out, "Bye, Dr. Reyes. Thanks for making Daddy better." I waved, walking away with a lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in weeks. Because Emma was wrong about one thing. I hadn't made Daddy better. Love had made Daddy better. A 5-year-old girl's courage, a father's determination, a mother's support, a community's care. That's what healed. Not the surgeries, not the medications, not the medical interventions. Those helped the body heal. But Emma's love healed everything else. 1 year after the accident, Marcus underwent his final reconstructive surgery. It was voluntary, elective, scar revision on his face to improve appearance and function, particularly around his mouth and eye. I'd completed my residency by then and was now working as an attending in the ER. But I made a point to visit him in pre-op. He was nervous, I could tell. Not about the surgery itself, but about changing his face again. About looking different from what Emma had grown accustomed to. "What if she doesn't recognize me?" he asked, only half joking. "Marcus," I said, sitting beside his bed. "Emma has seen your face change gradually over the past year. This is just one more change, and it's for the better. Better function, less tightness, improved symmetry. She'll still see you. I know. Logically, I know, but you remember how terrified you were a year ago that she'd be afraid of you." He nodded. "I was so sure I'd lost her, that she'd never be able to look at me the same way. And what happened?" He smiled, that lopsided smile that would probably always be a bit asymmetrical but was beautiful nonetheless. "She proved me wrong. Every single day she proved me wrong." "Kids are remarkable," I said. "She told me last week that she thinks my scars look cool," Marcus said, laughing. "Cool. Like I'm a superhero or something." "To her you are." Jennifer arrived then, with Emma in tow. Emma was 6 now, 1st grade, all energy and enthusiasm. She bounced into the room, careful to avoid the IV lines, and climbed onto Marcus's bed. "Are you nervous, Daddy?" she asked. "A little," Marcus admitted. "Don't be. Dr. Torres is really good. She's going to make your face work even better. And then you can smile bigger," Emma demonstrated, stretching her own mouth into an exaggerated smile. Marcus laughed, pulling her close. "You're right. Thank you, Emma Bean." They wheeled him to surgery a few minutes later, Emma and Jennifer walking alongside until they reached the restricted area. Emma blew him a kiss, which Marcus caught and pressed to his heart. The surgery took 6 hours. I checked in periodically, getting updates from the OR. Everything went smoothly. Scar tissue removed, skin repositioned, function improved, appearance enhanced. When Marcus woke up in recovery, his face was bandaged again, but minimally compared to a year ago. Just strategic dressings protecting the surgical sites. Emma was allowed to visit briefly. She studied the new bandages seriously. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Not too bad," Marcus said, which was a lie. I could see the pain in his eyes. But he was good at being brave for his daughter now. A year of practice. "When can we see?" Emma asked. "A few days," Marcus said. "Once it's healed a bit." "Will you look different?" "Maybe a little, but still me." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Okay. I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Emma Bean." 2 weeks after the final surgery, the bandages came off. I wasn't there for it. It was a private moment between Marcus, Jennifer, Emma, and Dr. Torres. But Jennifer sent me a text later that day with a photo. In it, Marcus stood in front of a mirror, Emma beside him, both of them smiling. Marcus's face showed the results of a year of reconstructive surgery. Scars still present, but flatter, paler, less prominent. His facial symmetry was improved, his eye opening fully, his mouth able to form a complete smile. The right side of his face would never match the left, but the difference was less stark, less shocking. He looked like someone who'd been through something terrible and survived. He looked like a fighter, a survivor. He looked beautiful. The text from Jennifer read, She said, "Daddy, you look so handsome." Then she asked if we could go to the park, back to normal. "Thank you for everything, Dr. Reyes." I stared at that photo for a long time, sitting in my apartment after a long shift, the city lights glowing beyond my window. I thought about the man I'd met a year ago, devastated and terrified, convinced his daughter would be afraid of him forever. I thought about the little girl who'd been brave enough to see past fear, to recognize love even when it came wrapped in bandages and scars. I thought about Jennifer, who'd co-parented with grace and compassion despite a divorce, who'd put her daughter's needs first, who'd supported Marcus through his darkest moments. I thought about the medical team, Dr. Patel, Dr. Torres, Patricia, Dr. Freeman, all the nurses and therapists and support staff who'd contributed to Marcus's healing. And I thought about what I'd learned, that healing is never just physical, that appearance matters less than presence, that children see with their hearts more than their eyes, that love, real love, is stronger than fear or shock or any superficial change. Marcus had asked on that first terrible day, "Will my daughter be afraid of me?" And the answer had been, briefly, yes. Initially, yes. In the first moment, yes. But permanently, never. Because Emma didn't love her father's face. She loved her father. And no burn, no scar, no injury could change that fundamental truth. 2 years after the accident, I was giving a lecture to first-year medical students about trauma management and patient care. Near the end, I opened the floor for questions. A young woman raised her hand. "Dr. Reyes, how do you handle cases where the trauma is disfiguring? How do you talk to patients about permanent changes to their appearance?" I thought about how to answer, how to distill everything I'd learned into something useful for these students who hadn't yet seen the full scope of human suffering and resilience. "I'll tell you a story," I said, and I told them about Marcus Webb, about the factory worker who'd been burned so badly he thought his daughter would be afraid of him forever, about the 5-year-old girl who'd been brave enough to see past the bandages and scars to the father she loved, about the year-long journey of surgeries and healing and small victories. "What Marcus taught me," I said, "is that we often underestimate both the impact of trauma and the capacity for adaptation. Yes, his daughter was initially frightened, but with preparation, support, and consistent love, she adjusted. Children are incredibly resilient when they feel safe." I paused, making eye contact with as many students as I could. As doctors, we get so focused on the medical aspects, the grafts, the surgeries, the wound care, and those are critical, but we can't forget the human aspects, the fear, the grief, the relationships affected by trauma. Sometimes our most important job isn't fixing the body, it's supporting the person while they figure out how to live in a body that's changed. A male student raised his hand. "Did you stay in touch with him? Do you know how he's doing now?" I smiled. "Actually, yes. Marcus is doing well. He returned to work 6 months ago. Different position, not welding anymore, but still at the same company. Emma just turned 7. She's in 2nd grade, plays soccer, wants to be a veterinarian. Marcus still has scars, still has some functional limitations in his right arm, but he's living a full life. He's present for his daughter. He's rebuilding." "And the little girl?" another student asked. "Is she okay? Did it affect her?" "She's more than okay," I said. "Jennifer, Marcus's ex-wife, told me that Emma wrote an essay last year for school about her hero. She wrote about her dad, about how he was brave when he got hurt, how he didn't give up even though it was hard. She drew a picture of him with his scars and wrote, 'My daddy is the strongest person I know.'" Several students looked moved. One wiped her eyes. "That's what I want you to remember," I said. "Yes, we treat injuries. Yes, we manage pain and infection and complications. But we also bear witness. We walk alongside people through their hardest moments. And sometimes, the greatest healing happens not in the OR or the ICU, but in a hospital room when a scared little girl decides that her father's love matters more than his scars." That evening, I received an unexpected email. The subject line read, "Thank you." It was from Marcus. "Dr.
Reyes? Jennifer told me you mentioned us in a lecture today. One of the students posted about it on social media and a friend sent it to me. I wanted to reach out and say thank you. 2 years ago, I was convinced my life was over. Not because of the physical injuries, though those were horrible, but because I thought I'd lost my daughter's love. I thought she'd look at me and see a monster. I thought I'd destroyed the most important relationship in my life.
You told me that kids are resilient, that love matters more than appearance. I wanted so badly to believe you, but I was terrified you were wrong. You weren't wrong. Emma is 7 now, and she's incredible. She's funny and smart and kind and brave. She doesn't even notice my scars anymore. They're just part of who I am. Last week, a kid at school asked her what happened to her dad's face, and she said, "He got hurt at work, but he's okay now." Like it was the most normal thing in the world. I've had 11 surgeries over the past 2 years. I'll probably have a few more for minor revisions. I'll never look like I did before the accident. But I've realized that's okay, because Emma doesn't need me to look a certain way. She just needs me to show up, to be present, to love her. And I can do that. I do that every single day. Jennifer and I have actually become better friends than we were when we were married. Shared trauma has a way of either destroying relationships or strengthening them, and thankfully, we landed in the second category. We co-parent smoothly now, united by our love for Emma. I returned to work 8 months ago. Different role, like I mentioned. I'm in quality control now, checking welds rather than doing them. It's safer, less exciting, but it lets me provide for Emma, and that's what matters. I still have bad days. Days when the pain flares up, when I catch my reflection and feel grief for the face I lost, when I wonder what my life would be like if I'd called in sick that day. But those days are getting fewer and farther between. And then I have days like yesterday, when Emma asked me to come to her school for Bring Your Hero to School Day. Me, her hero. Not a firefighter or a police officer or a soldier. Me, just her dad. Scars and all. I cried when she asked. Happy tears this time. "Dr. Reyes, you saved my life in a way that goes beyond the medical care. You gave me hope when I had none. You helped me see a path forward when all I could see was darkness. You treated me like a whole person, not just a set of injuries. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing Emma. Thank you for believing in us even when I couldn't believe in myself. I hope you share our story with as many medical students as possible, because they need to know that healing isn't just about the body. It's about the heart, the soul, the relationships that give life meaning. With deep gratitude, Marcus Webb." I read the email 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I saved it, printed it, and added it to the collection I kept in my desk drawer. Letters and cards and photos from patients who'd taught me what it really means to practice medicine. Marcus had asked on that terrible first day, "Will my daughter be afraid of me?" And I'd frozen, because I didn't know how to answer. Because the honest answer was complicated, nuanced, not the simple reassurance he desperately needed. But now, 2 years later, I knew the real answer. Yes, she was afraid. For a moment, for a day, maybe for a week. She was afraid because things that look different can be scary, especially to a 5-year-old. But love is stronger than fear. Presence is more powerful than appearance. Consistency overcomes shock. Emma had been afraid of what she saw, but she'd chosen to see deeper, to look past the bandages and scars to the father who'd always loved her, who showed up for her, who read her stories and listened to her chatter and made her feel safe. And in doing so, she'd taught everyone around her, her parents, the medical team, me, what really matters. Not the face you show the world, but the heart you bring to every moment. Marcus would always have scars. His face would always bear the marks of that terrible day. But those scars had become part of his story, part of who he was. Not the most important part, not the defining part, just part of the complex, beautiful, messy reality of being human. I thought about all the patients I'd seen over my years in medicine, the ones who survived and the ones who didn't, the ones who healed physically but remained broken inside, the ones who never physically healed completely but found ways to build beautiful lives anyway. And I thought about what separated them, what allowed some people to rise from trauma and others to remain trapped by it. It wasn't the severity of the injury. It wasn't the quality of the medical care, though that certainly helped. It was the presence of love, of connection, of people who saw past the surface to the soul beneath. Marcus had Jennifer and Emma. He had a medical team who cared. He had friends and family and eventually support groups of other burn survivors. He had a web of connection that caught him when he fell and lifted him back up. That's what healing looks like. Not the absence of scars, but the presence of love despite them. As I sat in my apartment that night, the city spread out below me. I thought about the doctor I was becoming. I'd entered medicine wanting to save lives, to fix problems, to be the hero who made everything better. But Marcus taught me that being a good doctor isn't about being a hero. It's about being a witness, about standing beside people in their darkest moments and saying, "I see you, I'm here, we'll figure this out together." It's about recognizing that every patient is more than their diagnosis, more than their injuries, more than their scars. They're whole people with families and fears and hopes and dreams. And sometimes, the best medicine we can offer isn't a procedure or a prescription. Sometimes it's hope. Sometimes it's honesty tempered with compassion. Sometimes it's simply believing in someone's capacity to heal when they can't believe it themselves. Marcus had frozen me with his question, "Will my daughter be afraid of me?" And I'd frozen because I didn't have a good answer. But Emma had answered for me, in the most beautiful way possible. She'd been afraid, and then she'd been brave. And in her bravery, she'd shown everyone that love doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require an unmarred face or an unblemished body. It just requires showing up, being present, being real. The factory worker saw his burned face and said, "My daughter will be afraid of me." And his daughter saw his burned face and said, "It's just Daddy." And in the space between those two truths, healing happened. Not the kind of healing that erases scars or restores what was lost, but the kind that transforms tragedy into story, pain into purpose, fear into love. The kind that reminds us what it means to be human. The kind that saves not just lives, but souls.